Hi, everybody. We're going to get started here. I am Casey Harriet. I'm the R3 coordinator for the state of Oklahoma. I work with NWTF and ODWC. And today we're going to go over muzzle loading basics. We have my husband here, game warden for Lincoln County, Jacob Harriet, who's going to kind of be our guest speaker today. We actually borrowed a slideshow from Deer Conference, if you heard about that. So it was the same presentation, just given by a different person, although you'll see Jerry Shaw, who is the big game supervisor for the state of Oklahoma. You'll see his name underneath it. That's the presentation we borrowed it from. So after we go over this slideshow, we're going to go over some regulations, keep you guys legal in the field, and then we're going to open it up to a question and answer at the end. And as you guys think of questions, go ahead and just type them in the chat box throughout this whole presentation, and then I will field those at the end for Jacob and I. All right, and thank you guys all for being here. We're super excited to have you. All right, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. I might have someone give me a heads up when when you guys can see this. Can I get a verbal confirmation?
You're good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. So we just went over, those are the topics that you just saw on that first slide. Those are all the questions we're going to have answered during this presentation. So take it away.
Yeah. So sorry about that. So this is kind of the basics of muzzle loading. So what I'm going to do is I will talk about the basic muzzle loading over this PowerPoint. And then after that, I'll go over the regulations and some hunting stuff with it as well. If you guys have questions at any time, type them in the chat and then we'll answer them at the end. But that last slide, it kind of went over and broke down what we're going to be talking about here. But just to start off, so what is a muzzle loader? In Oklahoma, a muzzle loader is any firearm that is loaded from the muzzle. So there are some muzzle loaders that actually load from the breech, and those are illegal in Oklahoma. You have to load it from the muzzle. There are some new ones that have come out, some shotguns that you can modify to make a muzzle loader. As long as you're loading it from the muzzle is the end of the barrel, you're good to go. But if you're loading it from the breech or the back of the barrel, it's not legal for muzzle loading. So there's no restriction on propellant. Talk about that a little bit more in a bit, but basically, as long as it's a single projectile, you're in good shape. To be legal for deer hunting, muzzle loaders, rifle or pistol of 40 caliber or larger, firing a single projectile. So as long as it's 40 caliber or bigger, it's one projectile. So you can't put like buckshot or something like that. It has to be like a single bullet or slug. Muzzle loading shotguns, I've never checked anybody with one of these, but basically it's just an unrifled barrel muzzle loader. They're illegal too. It just has to be 20 gauges, 20 gauge or larger, and firing a single projectile. So why use a muzzle loader? Probably the biggest advantage is you get to go out there and hunt with something more effective than a bow before rifle season comes into play. So it's a 9-day season. You get to go out there and just before the woods gets taken over by the Orange Army, you get to go out there and get a little hunting in. And it's a great time of year right now. I'm seeing a lot of deer activity pre-rut and a lot of deer out making scrapes, and those bucks are getting on their feet and getting active in daylight. So prime time to hunt, and you're going to get you a 9-day season in there before rifle starts. So lower equipment cost is the second thing. So you can get muzzle loaders a lot cheaper than you can a rifle. Muzzle loaders, you can spend as much as you want on them like anything else, but you can get a pretty good muzzle loader for $100, $150. And then you just have to buy your powder and patches and bullets, of course, to go along with that. But it's a cheap option, of course, a single shot, but not as effective as a rifle, but more effective than a bow. Get you out in the woods a little earlier before rifle season. So
just like you said.
Yep, just like in this PowerPoint, there's less hunters in the woods, so that's a pretty good graph there, showing the different harvest records and stuff for those current seasons in 2004. But just get you a little more access before people get in there and start stomping around in the woods.
This is actually 2004, 2020. So those are all the years. And it shows that it's kind of dipping down in 2020 as opposed to a high year in 06 and it's shooting up on rifle season. So it looks like you'd have better odds to be out in the field muzzle loading this day and age than rifle hunting for sure.
Yep, absolutely, a lot less pressure. Season time puts you in the wood earlier. I kind of covered that. Pre-rut activity. The deer are starting to get very, very excited. It's been a lot of fun to kind of watch them get kicked off, and it's very traditional. Some of these muzzleloader guys, they live and breed muzzleloader hunting. It's one of the first firearms that we had here. They're really neat. You can do a lot of cool things with them. Just a lot of history tied into muzzleloader hunting, and a lot of people get pretty serious about that. It's also, I would add, it's more of a challenge than rifle hunting. So say you get rifle hunting, you've rifle hunted for, a long time, and it's getting kind of dull, and you just want to change things up a little bit. You go grab you a muzzleloader, and you got a whole new tool to use to get the job done. So just a lot of fun to get out there and play with. So just the basic types of muzzleloader. The flintlock, I actually have checked some people using flintlock muzzleloaders. With a flintlock, you basically have a piece of flint, or the rock flint, that when hit on the steel will make a spark. There's a catch pan for your powder. The spark from that steel hitting the flint makes a spark, and it ignites the gun, and it goes off. A cap lock is probably one of the more common ones we see, but there's actually a nipple that you put a number 11 percussion cap on, cock the hammer back. When the hammer strikes that cap, it actually puts a spark in, and that's what ignites it. More reliable than the flintlock, for sure. And then anymore, these inlines are getting very, very popular. Some of these inline rifles they're basically rifles. They're extremely accurate, extremely reliable. And then I've never checked anybody with an electric ignition, but they do have those out there.
And what are those?
It just basically, yeah, it's either battery powered or some form of electricity that creates a spark and fires the firearm. So propellant types, use black powder or black powder equivalents. This is very, very, very important. So these powders will be clearly marked for the use with muzzleloaders. Your normal rifle cartridges that we have today, like if you were to buy, a 308 cartridge, that uses smokeless powder, and it's more explosive than this muzzleloader powder. So it can cause damage to your gun and damage to yourself. It's very explosive, and most muzzleloaders are not rated to handle that kind of pressure. But you can get actual powder, preformed pellets, pre-measured charges, and then your owner manual with that rifle is going to be very important for determining what it is. And then always check the powder to make sure it is for muzzleloaders. It's black powder or black powder equivalent. So projectile types, you must match the rifle caliber with the projectile size. So just like any other gun, those rifles are going to be stamped on it, 45 caliber, 50 caliber, 54 caliber, and you want to make sure you're buying the correct bullet type for that gun. So you wouldn't, if you grab a 50 cal bullet and shove it in a 45, it's not going to fit. But if you get a 45 caliber bullet, try to put it in a 50 caliber muzzleloader, it'll go down there, but it's just not going to be a snug fit, and it's going to lead to a lot of issues. So make sure you're absolutely making sure those bullets match with your gun. So there's multiple choices in each caliber. Your owner manual will kind of explain the different weights and powders and charges and stuff like that. So the basic types, you have your round ball, definitely not as accurate or reliable as the new cast bullets and the sabot bullets. So with the round ball, you will actually put a patch on your barrel, stuff the round ball in, and then stuff that down, and that patch is what separates the powder from the bullet.
Does this work for any muzzleloader, or is this more for like the flintlocks, the very old school?
No, you can do those. You can do those.
Inline?
Yeah. Okay. Anything that's the right caliber for it'll work for. And then your more modern bullets are the sabot bullets, and that they actually have a plastic cap that separates the powder from the bullet. Some of them are extremely accurate. They're all very effective, but some of those newer bullets and ammunition, they have bullets with ballistic tips on it for muzzleloaders. And I've seen people make some pretty incredible shots that you would never think a muzzleloader could, but they do very well.
And what he means by that is they typically don't have the range that a rifle would have.
Correct. Yeah. Usually when you go to muzzleloader, you're more restricted on your range. You kind of have to be a little more cautious on humidity and what moisture in the air.
You should tell my story.
Yeah. So last year, I loaded her gun up, made sure everything was sighted in and good to go. It was. She took it out to the woods. Was going to try to harvest a doe, and she goes out there, and I'm sitting not far away, and she texts me. It didn't go off, and a lot of times, so the way a muzzleloader works is your primer ignites your powder. So there is a mini explosion before the main explosion of the rifle going off. So that percussion cap, for her, she has an inline. When that percussion cap is striked, it's kind of like a cap gun going off. It basically is a cap gun. It's just a pop. And then ideally, after that cap goes off, the gun goes off. Muzzle loaders and humidity, and the gun had been loaded for about a week, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But for whatever reason, there was something blocking the hole where the spark was supposed to go through to ignite her powder, and it didn't go off. And the deer just sat there and looked at her like she was, crazy.
And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get another cap or another primer in to shoot this again because the deer was just staring at me the whole time. So.
Yeah. So she was texting me on the phone, and I was trying to walk her through it. Put another cap in, try again. Of course, the deer were right on top of her. She couldn't do that without spooking them, and so she was kind of pretty upset about the whole matter. And I came home to see what was going on. I put a cap in it, and it went off just fine. So don't know what happened. The humidity can be a big factor in that. If there's moisture in the air, you're dealing with loose powder. It can cause that to have a malfunction. It could have just been something blocking that hole that maybe that previous cap blew out. I'm not really sure.
Or that primary, or that first explosion, that first could have dried out that any sort of humidity. And if I could have just right then put another cap in or another primer in, it could have gone off like that. So a lot of times it could just been a dry out real fast, and then adding that next cap the gun would have gone off no problem. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
So safety first. So one thing that I will warn you about with black powder hunting is they get dirty. Depending on which kind you have, the inlines with the pelletized powder seem to be a little bit cleaner, but the old school cap and ball muzzleloaders, man, they will get nasty with that black powder. So you got to make sure those things are clean. I try to clean mine after every shot, unless I'm continuing to shoot it. But if I just go out and shoot it once, I don't put it back in the gun safe and leave it there for a month, because it's going to get pretty nasty. So I always try to, when you're done shooting it for the day, get it clean. If you get out in any moisture or anything, make sure you get it cleaned up. So your powder charge, if you use the pelletized, it's very easy because usually they come in 50 grain powder charges, and you can measure 2 would be 100 grains, which is a pretty common load. But you want to make sure that that is the correct measurement for your rifle, and your owner's manual and just some good common sense will come in handy there. Not put too much in there. You are in control of the powder for that muzzleloader, so you can put a lot of powder in there and turn that thing into a pipe bomb if you're not careful. So just make sure, just use good common sense, you'll be just fine. So you want to seat the powder charge correctly, use a short starter, and get that round started. And I'll talk a little bit about loading in a second.
Have we loaded mine today?
No.
We might just put that. We're about to sight my gun in, and we might just do it on.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
Convenient.
Yep. So using a short starter instead. I don't have my short starter. I'll have to get that out. Okay. And then ramming that down, and then you prime the ignition. But I'll go over the full loading here in a bit. Cleaning discussions. So that black powder is extremely corrosive. It's very important to clean. So the black powder equivalent is usually a little bit better. That's that pelletized stuff that we talked about. So a lot of these guns are sealed breech, which basically means is the barrel is a one-way entry only, if that makes sense. So you can load it from the muzzleloader, but you can't get access to it from the rear. And that makes things kind of difficult as far as cleaning goes. There are special tools that you can get to clean muzzleloaders. I've actually had muzzleloaders get patches or a cleaning, something of the cleaning sort stuck in them. You have to get a special tool to get that out because you can't access it from the back. Most of your breech loaders actually have like a lock that you can unscrew, and then your barrel is just a tube. You have access on both sides. Makes cleaning way, way easier. But those ones that are sealed, it can be a challenge. And it's not hard. You just have to have the right stuff to do it. So you got that plug breech you can pull out, good to go. Clean early and clean often. Used for proper solvents and boiling water. So just make sure they're clean. There's a lot of good information on cleaning them out there. You just don't want those things to get nasty. Special considerations while you're hunting out there: keep your powder dry. Reload it much slower than centerfire, or they reload much slower than centerfire rifles, of course. More movement to reload, less convenience to reload. Unable to easily reload, and head in the clouds. Not sure what the head in the clouds means, but
Oh, when you shoot and there's puff.
okay.
Yeah.
The smoke plume after you shoot.
Which
Okay.
happens, so you shoot, you're covered in smoke, and you have no idea where your deer ran off to. So
Yeah.
that kind of makes things
Yeah, it
complicated.
can make a good puff of smoke. I guess that makes sense. But so like in Casey's instance we just talked about, she actually didn't even fire that rifle, but she needed to get another primer in the gun, and it was inconvenient for her to move and do so. Where a rifle, you could maybe just move your hand a little bit and get that. With hers, you have to break the gun open, get a primer out of wherever you're storing it, and stick it in there. So it's a more inconvenient, more movement. Makes hunting more of a challenge. Some people really like that. Some people really don't. But it's always fun to see that big smoke cloud and hope the bullet went where you meant it to. And this is just do it. It's a
We didn't add that.
yeah. This is my slide, but you just do it. It's fun. Definitely do a little research before you get into it. There's a lot of information out there anymore. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. If you buy a gun, look over that owner's manual because it's going to make the correct recommendations for it. But make sure you're using the proper powder charge. Make sure you're keeping them clean. But that's kind of the basics for it. I've had instances going out hunting if it's a rainy day or a real misty day or just the humidity is real high. Sometimes I have an older style percussion cap muzzleloader, and I've had a lot of issues with that actually going off. So it can be challenging. If it's real wet, you might not want to take it out. You might want to try it. You just have to get some experience with it. But a lot of fun to hunt with, and there's some big advantages. Getting out this time of year before all the deer get real smart to people walking around with rifles is a pretty big advantage.
Okay, so not seeing any chat so far, so we're going to go ahead, have you go over the regulations, and then maybe we can do a demonstration of how we load one of these guys since we're going to have to do it anyways.
Yeah, I have to find that short starter. I'm not sure.
Okay. Maybe not.
Yeah, we'll see if I know where that is or not. We were going to sight hers in today. Let's see here. So I'm just in our regulations now. So under big game regulations, that PowerPoint did a very good job. Basically, 40 caliber for muzzleloader pistols and rifles. It has to be a single bullet, and it has to be loaded from the muzzle. That's pretty much it as far as season specifics as far as a firearm goes. Just as far as the muzzleloader season itself, this year it's October 22nd to the 30th. Your season limit, depending on your antlerless zone, is 4. No more than 1 can be antlered. In my county, you can have 2, no more than, or 3, no more than 1 can be antlered in my antlerless zone. That antlerless zone is online and in our regulations. So just make sure you double check that and know where you're at in the state. They're pretty generic as far as big terms of land in them, so it's pretty easy to find out. It's just like any other big game season. You have 30 minutes before sunlight to 30 minutes after sunset. And you do have to wear hunter orange with muzzleloader. So you want to wear a vest and a hat, 400 square inches. I'm not going to be out there measuring, but make sure you have a vest and a hat. The camo hunter orange is legal, but make sure it's the right blaze hunter orange. OSU colors do not count. It needs to be blaze orange. That is there for your safety. I don't want anybody getting shot. Every year I have people tell me on private land that they don't have to wear it because they're on private land and nobody else is hunting there. Every year I get trespassers, usually on those properties that they're talking about, and there's people hunting on that property that aren't supposed to be there. And if they don't know where you are, a trespasser isn't a murderer, so they're not going to purposely shoot you most of the time. But if they know where you're at, they're going to avoid you, and they might not even run off your property because they know somebody else is hunting that. So wear that hunter orange. As far as harvesting a deer, it's the same as anything else. So after you harvest it, the first thing you're supposed to do is put your field tag on it. That field tag has your name, license number, time and date of harvest. You're going to attach that. It can be anything. We don't supply those tags. It can be, duct tape with a Sharpie, cardboard, anything to secure that information to it. After that, you have 24 hours to check that animal in after you leave your hunting area. Pretty simple. It's a huge advantage to get out this time of year. I can't stress that enough because the deer are getting active. They're not super alert to people activity yet, and you can get in, and there's always some really good deer harvested during muzzleloader season. I love it. I know my wife is looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to it as well. But that's pretty much it. The regs are pretty much the same as any other deer season. So if you guys have specific questions, then put it in the chat, and we can go over that. But I think that's about it for regulations.
Okay. Let's see. Well, you just did such a good job that No questions
Yeah.
are being asked.
You want me to go
so-
try to find that short
Yeah,
story?
go ahead.
Give me
I'm
one
going to
second,
take a
guys.
quick intermission while we go try to find the short stick. And we will hopefully be able to give a demonstration of how to load these things. And if you think of something, please just type it in the chat still. Okay, we found it.
Okay, guys, I found that short starter, and I forgot to mention something I wanted to tell you. So with these muzzle loaders, how do we know they're unloaded? So that's a question, especially if you have one that is a sealed breech or you can't access it from the backside. That can be difficult to do. So the best way to do it is on these muzzle loaders, they have a ramrod. So here we go. This is your ramrod. Most of them are attached to the gun. So these need to be marked, and there's a line on there if you can see it. But when you put that in there, it goes all the way down. That one's actually a little short for this guy. But if it's loaded, it'll stick out. So if that makes sense, it'll stick out, that far out of the barrel, and that lets me know that there's a powder charge in there. So I know that this gun is unloaded because that ramrod goes all the way down. So easy way to tell. If you buy a gun from like a pawn shop or something like that, those charges can be in there a long time. They actually make a piece, and I don't have one with me, but you can screw. Most of these are able to attach stuff and screw in, but they actually make parts that you can screw in to the ramrod, and you can screw into a lead bullet or a lead projectile and pull that out and remove it. With these, it's really, really easy. So this is just your probably more typical inline muzzle loader. It has a trigger above the trigger guard right here, which breaks the barrel. You can actually, I don't know if I can get it by hand, but this is your breech plug, and you can unscrew that, and then that barrel just becomes a tube. Super easy for cleaning. There is a hole there, which you actually put your primer in. I think they're 209 shotgun primer, I believe. So 209 shotgun primer, good to go there. You just stick that in after everything's loaded. So as far as you go hunting, you don't shoot anything, you decide to go back home. How do you make this gun safe? You're not supposed to drive around with a loaded gun in your truck. So what you do is you just remove the primer. So it can have a powder charge and a bullet in it, and really, for the most part, unless something crazy happens and the weather gets nasty, I will load this at the beginning of the season, and I will not unload it until the end of the season. I just remove that primer. So if I'm getting in my truck, I'll pull the primer out. It can't go off without that primer. Same with the percussion caps. I actually won't put a cap on there until I get to the spot where I'm hunting. I'm ready to hunt. I know that, okay, I might have a shot at any time now.
Are the percussion caps the same as the primers? Is that the terminology is the same?
So your inline will use these 209 primers, which you fit into the gun here. Go grab my muzzleloader on the bed. So this is your inline, but you put the percussion cap in here. My muzzleloader is actually a more traditional style, and it has a percussion cap that goes on the nipple. She'll grab that in just a second, and we'll give you that. So here you go. This is a good example of it. So this is what is called the nipple. You put a number 11 percussion cap. They're much smaller than the 209 primers. You put that on there, and then by cocking this hammer back,
push it up to the screen because you're seeing it.
There you go. Can you see that? So this is your nipple. You actually take a small percussion cap. I believe I have one in
here. You look, it's stored.
Yeah, this guy has a neat little handy deal. But this is your. They're little bitty, but it's a number 11 cap, and that actually just fits right on there, like that. And now the gun is ready to fire. So I always keep that removed off there until I'm ready to shoot. But that's just your more traditional style, and this is what is called an inline.
I
I'll
gotta
put it
put
back
all
in
this
there.
stuff back in there.
Okay, so as far as loading these goes, so you do have to load these from the muzzle. We want to be very careful that we do not point it at our face when we're doing that. So as far as powder goes, and your powder is usually also by caliber. So this is for a 50 caliber. So the pelletized powder are 50 grains, and they're made for a 50 caliber. I have another box over there that's made for 45. Mine that I just showed you, I actually load out of a powder horn, which is like the old school mountain man kind of stuff. So I'm going to put this between my leaves with this barrel pointed away from me. I do not want to be in line with that at all. So these are 50 grains a piece, and they just come with little pelletized things. Some people don't like to touch them with your hands. I've never had any issues. The main reason is just for moisture contents. So you just take these. That's 50 grains, 100 grains. So we have her gun set at 100 grains. That's what it shoots the best with, and it does very well. You might have to open these. And this is our 7. Yeah.
And you test that out too, like
Yes.
explain the difference.
Different guns will shoot better with different powders. So you just kind of got to do some experimenting and sighting in and double check everything. But we just bought her some bullets. We're actually about to get her gun ready to go today.
I'm going to cut myself in the process here.
Okay, so these are kind of it's right from the store, so you guys will get a good example here. This is a Hornady bullet. I think what's the grain on them? 250
these are
grain.
250.
Yeah, so this is 250 grain. So this is your bullet. This is your sabot. So they actually fit down in there like that, fit together. So this separates your bullet from your powder. Good to go there. So I'm going to set that at the front of my barrel, and it's going to be tight. You want a good tight fit. If it just falls right down there, you might have the wrong size. Now this is your short starter. So it has a small deal here for starting the bullet, and then you can get it started with this little bit longer piece. So the whole reason for these is with that ramrod, it's a big long rod. You don't want to do that. Like I said, I'm going to keep this pointed away from me.
To start it off at first.
Yes. So take that little small piece. We're going to put that right on the tip of the bullet. Get that seated in there. Once that's in, we switch to our slightly longer piece. Shove that down there. This gun's good and clean, so it's going in really easy. Then after that, we take our ramrod, and we're going to shove it all the way down. And see, I have my white line marked right there. So now I know that gun is loaded. We want to make sure that that is all the way to the back of this gun. You do not want any space in between your powder and your bullet, because at that point, it can explode because it is not properly set and there's a gap in there. When you shoot these guns, they go out the easiest hole possible. Ideally, that is the barrel. If there's space in there, that gets compromised. So now that thing is in there properly. It is set. Put our ramrod back. Now this gun, it cannot shoot until we apply our primer. So I'm not going to put the primer in there, but I'll show you what you do. So this is our 209 primer. The small cap. It's much bigger than the number 11 I use for my percussion cap muzzleloader, but this is an inline, and you would just stick that in there just like that. Get that set in there. Some of them have a little gap, so you can get them out a little bit easier. But that sits there, and you just close that breech. Now this gun is ready to fire when we cock that hammer. Or inside, I do not want this gun to go off. I'll pull that out. So this is a safe way to transport and store this firearm. If you get into wet conditions while you're hunting or the humidity is really high, that powder can get damp and have a failure to go off. In most cases, these inline are very good because they're a sealed breech, where you can unscrew that. If something happens, you can pull that powder out without actually having to shoot it. For the most part, when you unload a gun, typically in most situations, you're actually going to shoot that gun to unload it. You can use some of those tools to drill out the bullets and stuff like that, but that's usually because something is stuck. But most of the time, we just fire these to unload the firearm.
I might add, like when you're going out in the woods with a muzzleloader, what I always do is it's always loaded ahead of time, and then I just stick a few primers in my pocket. And when I get out to my location, I'm ready to go. I just reach in, put a primer in, completely safe that way, and then you leave it like that until you see a deer coming, then you cock back that hammer, just to be as safe as possible. Or we're good on time.
Okay, I guess I can.
We have
mine
2 questions, I think.
Okay. I can load
or
that.
1 question. Okay.
Percussion cap as well.
What type of gunpowder was it?
So this, for example, what we've been using, it's a 777 by Hogden, and there's a bunch of different kinds, but it's an easy, clean muzzleloading for pellet, and it's 100 preformed pellets. They're 50 grains a piece, and they're 50 caliber. So I don't know if you can read that all right. So make sure you get a 50 caliber for a 50 caliber gun. So I have some other ones over here that is for my father-in-law's gun, and you can see it says 45-50. So that's it's a 50 grains of powder, but it's a 40 for a 45 caliber gun. So there's differences there. If we have time, I can actually load mine as well, just to get some experience with that. A little different style. Give me 1 second, guys.
Is this good stuff? Is it beneficial? We've never done like live demonstrations, but it was just handy since we're about to shoot these guns anyways, get ready. So while we're here, what all do you guys have to hunt with? Like, what type of muzzleloader are you guys thinking about hunting with? You guys can type in the chat, or are you old school Jack Sparrow style? Or when I see those flintlock, I always think of Captain Jack Sparrow off of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay, so this is my muzzleloader, and it's just a little bit different. So with this is a percussion cap muzzleloader. It's a little bit more old school. I'm going to put that hammer down. The same do here. See if I can do it sit down so you can see it just a little bit better. So with this, I'm using loose powder. It's not pelletized. So it comes in a can like this, and then I have my powder horn. So this is kind of old school. These powder horns, they come with a brass measurement device, and this button releases powder into this. So all I do is I take my thumb and hold it on that, and this is pre-measured. It's right around 100 grains. It's what this gun shoots very well with. But you just turn it up and down and shake it, release that button, and then I have a powder charge full of powder there. I will take that. You don't want to spill it, but you put that into your barrel, give it a few taps. Okay, perfect. Now I'm not shooting a sabot with these, so I actually use a patch. So here is my pre-lubricated patch, just a piece of cloth that has some grease on it.
Grease, is it like?
Just oil or grease. Most of them come pre-lubed, but anything that can be a lubricant. So if you can see there, I have a patch and I have my 45 caliber ball sitting on top of that. So with my starter, I'll get that down and I get it started there. So now it's pre-started. Get it going there. It's a little bit tighter with these lead balls, but that's okay. So there we go. Now we have my ramrod. Nice and easy. Down pat. I have my line marked right there for a loaded gun. I'm going to tap that a few times, make sure it's all set. Slide that back in. All right, now that gun is loaded. It will not go off until I put my number 11 primer on there. So I cock this back, and I'd like to mention that this has a half cock for safety, and then full cock for shooting. And then this one actually has a set trigger. So you pull this pull this back trigger, it'll set, and then it turns that into a hair trigger, where it goes off very easily. So to show that again, half cock would be safety. It doesn't allow that primer to hit on that cap.
So does it keep it in there?
That cap, they fit snug to that nipple, so they're not going to fall off. But half cock, it just keeps it off there. So if you bump it or whatever, it's not going to have any powder. When we're ready to fire, we cock it back. There's two triggers. So the back trigger is a set trigger. Pull that, your front trigger clicks, and then that is a hair trigger where just a little bit of pressure sets that off. Really nice for accuracy. But if I was in a hunting situation ready to go, I would take that, cock it back, slide my primer on there, and now this gun is ready to fire. So want to go back to the truck, I'm done hunting. I just take that cap off, let down my hammer. This one has a super handy port here. I can put my extra primers, put my extra patch in there, good to go. Go back to the field or back to my truck. And that's pretty much all there is to it. But this is a percussion cap. Casey's gun that we just showed you is an inline. The inline is definitely more common, more popular, and easier to use than these. These are just a little bit trickier. But both are great guns, a lot of fun to shoot. And the range-wise, I have less range with that round ball than I do the sabot. Those sabot are much more accurate. But that's
if you notice, my inline has a scope on it too,
yes.
which is really handy.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just your standard iron sights. But,
And it's heavy.
yeah, these are very heavy. These barrels are very, very heavy, but they're beautiful guns. A lot of fun to shoot and play with. But that's probably your two most common rifles, muzzleloaders that you're going to see. So that was a pretty good example. I'm glad we thought to load those up. We did not plan that beforehand, so it
No,
worked
it's
out
just
well.
very convenient that it's we got to get them sighted in. Someone says looking to buy an inline. That's a good choice. I think I used to work at Bass Pro. Can you buy a black powder at 18?
I believe so.
I think you can. I think you can buy a black powder at
Yeah.
18 versus a rifle at.
No, you can buy rifles.
Yeah, I guess you can.
But
Yeah.
you can't buy a pistol at 21.
Yeah, that's what it was. And
but these muzzleloaders are super affordable. They make some fantastic muzzleloaders, very accurate muzzleloaders, right around 150 bucks. It's probably some cheaper than that. But it's an easy way to get your foot in the door. The powder and the sabots or bullets or whatever you choose to use, they're not super expensive. Luckily now they're easy to find. There was a time where some of that stuff, powder, any sort of powder reloading or primers or anything like that, were kind of difficult to find. But
we just went to Academy in Midwest City 2 days ago. So the week before muzzleloader opener, and they had them. So
yeah, we ran out of bullets last year. Went stocked back up, no problem. It's a great way to get in the woods. It's a lot of fun. So give it a shot.
Well, I'm looking for any questions.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I always put this in every one of these videos. If you guys have issues or have concerns or you're not sure on something, contact the local game warden in your area. Our numbers are in the regulations and they're online. So if you just go online and type in Oklahoma Game Wardens, our numbers will pop up, and just call the one for your respective county.
Did you mention that you can also use your muzzleloader during rifle season?
I did not. So that brings up another thing too. So muzzleloaders you can use in all our regs. You can use least effective methods of take during the more effective method of take way, if that makes sense.
Which means rifle is the most effective way. So
yes.
Archery and muzzleloader are less effective than rifle.
Yes. So and less effective isn't a good term, I guess, but
I think
not as challenging.
Yeah.
So for instance, archery season, all you can use is archery. Muzzleloader season, you can use a muzzleloader or you can use archery equipment. Rifle season, you can use archery, muzzleloader, or rifle. So you can use, if you just have a muzzleloader and it's rifle season, you can still use that. I will caution you that just like archery, in archery season, if you're hunting with a bow, you cannot take a firearm out there unless it's for self-defense. So you can't carry around your deer rifle with you in case you see a coyote. Same way with muzzleloader. You can't take your muzzleloader and then have a shotgun if pigs come in. You can only have that muzzleloader in the field. It's a violation if you take another gun with you if it's not just for self-defense. But that's a good point there. So yeah, you're not restricted to just muzzleloader. You can do it in deer gun season, and you can also use it in holiday antlerless season. So it gives you a lot of opportunity to get in the woods with a muzzleloader.
I really like my muzzleloader, so that's what I did last year. I hunted a lot of rifle season with muzzleloader. So okay. Well, we sure thank you guys for attending this. I'm going to have this recorded, and we will have it posted on our website, and I'll try to send a link to you guys too as soon as we get it. It's going to be a YouTube video on YouTube, and you can go to our YouTube page, and it is under Learn to Hunt playlist or virtual class playlist. I forget what I have it under, but you'll find all these videos and all these classes that we've had so far. So sure appreciate it. Thank you guys. And if you have any more questions, you know my email address. I can get you in touch with someone. If I can't answer it, I can get you in touch with somebody that can. So
yep, have fun, be safe.
Get you one.
Wear your orange.